So what should one make of Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's thermonuclear flattery of Donald Trump at Sharm El Sheikh? Donald Trump holding fort and Prime Minister Narendra Modi choosing to stay away despite the invitation. A wise decision or, as some argue, an opportunity lost. Joining me on India First is Ambassador Kamal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary of India, and Raymond Vickrey Jr., Senior Associate and the Chair of the US-India Policy Studies at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Welcome, gentlemen. Ambassador Sibal, what do you make of Shehbaz Sharif's virtual sajda to Donald Trump, his flattery recommending Trump for a Nobel Prize for the second time?
Well, actually, it was cringeworthy. He went just too far in his obsequiousness, in his desire to flatter Trump, and he continued using all sorts of adjectives to praise him. Actually, either he is himself a fool or he thinks Trump is a fool. After all, the Nobel Peace Prize has already been given to the lady from Venezuela. Now, for him at this stage to think that he can gather brownie points by recommending Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, which will only be decided next year, is actually playing a game because he wants to flatter Trump. But you know, the astonishing thing is the snub, indirect snub that Trump administered to Shehbaz Sharif. I mean, he can't think of Shehbaz Sharif without thinking of his favorite Field Marshal Munir, and he's not there. So he's clearly devaluing the position of the Pakistani Prime Minister and the civilian leadership of Pakistan by actually indirectly saying that he considers Asim Munir to be the real force in Pakistan-US relations for whatever reasons. And this is a kind of humiliation, double humiliation. One, that Shehbaz Sharif humiliates himself as the Prime Minister of Pakistan by laying it so thick that is almost pathetic. It's so pathetic. And on top of that,
Pakistani newspapers are saying that flattery has become their foreign policy, and it is, as you said, very cringeworthy. Raymond Vickrey, you saw the whole show at Sharm El Sheikh. Your reading of the optics and the essence, and would Trump have been flattered by this? Would he see through this? Or it works both for Shehbaz Sharif and for Donald Trump?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think that you have to recognize, as our former governor in Virginia once said, who's a neurologist, that our president is a narcissistic maniac, and it's all about him. And that's the whole purpose of having a lineup and being able to call on people, humiliate them in some part, and then to have a person who will fall at his feet and lick the shoes and say wonderful, wonderful things about him. That's a very unfortunate aspect of the president, which we have, and the administration. But we have to look beyond these and see what we can do to build peace and prosperity in a very troubled world, which requires waging peace just like war. So these kinds of spectacles, while very disconcerting, make it very necessary for great democracies like India and the Prime Minister to step up and fill a leadership gap here so that we can have some semblance both of strategy and partnership for the principles which have kept the peace for some 80 years since World War II. I will give credit to President Trump for being involved, for getting apparently a ceasefire and exchange of hostages. That's better than just letting the killing go on, which has taken 70,000 Palestinians and Israelis as well. So, but that having been said, this is not the way to go about it. You need to be able to treat people with respect and not fawning.
Oh, absolutely. But, since you mentioned Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Ambassador Sibal, did Prime Minister Narendra Modi do the wise thing by staying away and sending Minister of State Kirti Vardhan Singh and not, the External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar either? Your reading of the steps that India took?
I think it was very wise because, you just see what Trump said after praising Prime Minister Modi. He suddenly equated India and Pakistan, saying that India and Pakistan are going to get along very nicely. Now, I think the worst thing would have been if Prime Minister Modi had been on the stage, he would have pulled him and asked him to shake hands with Nawaz Sharif
Imagine.
and say something ridiculous like India and Pakistan have to get nicely together. I'm willing to mediate. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I saved millions of people already, and I want to do more after this success in Sharm El Sheikh. I can have another success. It's a long festering problem. Now, if you were to say these things, which is quite capable of saying, it will be a huge, huge, huge embarrassment for the Indian Prime Minister. I think dignity demanded that the Prime Minister stay away. In any case, even if he had gone, he couldn't compete with Nawaz Sharif with this kind of obsequiousness.
With Shehbaz Sharif, yes, sir.
Because, and then the argument would have been that Nawaz Sharif has won brownie points over India because he flattered Trump and Trump was exceedingly happy. But Prime Minister Modi stood aloof and missed the opportunity, as some people are saying. I think it was
Very
very
interesting.
for the Prime Minister not to go.
So you think it's a very wise decision. Mr. Vickrey, your reading, would the US see India being represented by a Minister of State in this hall that was full of kings and heads of state and heads of government? How would this be viewed by the United States of America?
Well, there's a difference between how it'd be viewed by the United States of America and how it would be viewed by Donald Trump. I think the United States of America is very much invested in the dignity and the ability of India to act for itself. Donald Trump is not that way at all. I think it was a wise thing a wise move under the circumstances. But that having been said, I do think there's a leadership vacuum, and I think a great democracy like India has a role to play in building peace in the Middle East as well as South Asia. And I would think that the kinds of ties which India has with Israel, after all, Israel has been a major supplier of defense material to
Yes.
India, that India will want to play a more proactive role as a world leader in the Middle East, Ukraine, and across the world. India has the ability to be a great power, but it must, in that role, be willingness to step forward and provide some leadership, and I'm sure that's in the works.
Okay. Is that in the works, Ambassador Sibal? Would you see this, one, either as an opportunity lost or in the times to come, an opportunity for India to step up on the world stage, considering we are usually friends with both sides, whether it's Israel and Gaza or Palestine on one side or Russia and Ukraine on the other? Or should we just build our power till the time we're actually there?
Few things. Firstly, the entire process was stage managed between Trump and Netanyahu. We had no role to play. We were not consulted. We didn't have to give any advice. Even Netanyahu didn't want us to get involved. So it was not our baby, if you like. Now, the Arab countries obviously have to be present there. Turkey has to be present there. It's a co-signatory for the deal. And the European countries had to be there because Europe doesn't want to be left out. It doesn't want to leave the global stage only to the Americans and be content with being ignored or being in the sidelines. And as you know, the French president and some other countries, they have actually announced their support for a two-state solution for an independent Palestinian state. So they had to be there to mark their interest. And don't forget that France has played a very major role after the First World War in terms of the drawing of the maps in this region. And Britain, of course, as you know, was the supporter of the creation of Israel in the first place. So they had to be there. We didn't have to be there. And if we had to be there, it would have been a competition between India and Pakistan, and Trump would have made that into a competition and embarrassed
I'm glad you said that. So it was a very wise decision that India did not go.
Look, if the Prime Minister was there on the stage, lined up behind Trump, does it look dignified for the Indian Prime Minister to be in this role? I don't think so.
Absolutely. And I will let that be the last word on this part of the show. Ambassador Kamal, Sibal and Raymond Vickrey Jr. for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast. Many thanks. We'll track the story closely.